All right, well, thank you everybody so much for joining us. Today we're going to be talking with Stephanie of Rocket Fund. If you guys have any questions during the presentation, you can either use the Q&A feature to chat them in. You can use the chat box to chat them in. And if you do want to actually ask a question verbally, at the end, we'll open it up for some Q&A, and you can use the raise hand feature on Zoom. And then we can allow you to talk and actually ask your question. So a couple of different ways to get anything answered, and we are here to help. This is for you guys. So if you have any questions, interested about anything, need a little bit more clarification, this is your time to ask, and we are here for you. So Stephanie, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Grace, for the opportunity to present, and thank you all for joining me this morning. So I'll wait for you to share the slide. Okay.
All righty, so we are good to go.
Yeah, so today I'm going to talk about the Rocket Fund and the particular role that it plays in funding early stage clean tech startups. I'm going to mention some of the successes that we've had. And then, of course, I'll go over the process in some detail and then open it up for your questions. So what is the Rocket Fund? Where does it fit? So we like to think of ourselves as fast, flexible, actually, it's okay, fast, flexible, and free. Fast because from application to actually getting the money in your hands is about 6 months. Flexible because we follow your own agenda in getting your award and deploying it. We don't follow some other agenda that's actually set by, let's say, an overarching grant program. And then it's free. We don't take equity. Okay. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Go back to, there we are. So this is our mission, fighting for a sustainable planet. That's pretty big, you know, by accelerating technology innovation to world impact, invention by invention. So, you know, when we started the Rocket Fund, we realized early on that if we had this big mission, that we weren't going to be able to do it alone. So we formed an elite group of experts who work closely together. They all feel passionately about clean tech. They work closely together to solve the Earth's sustainability crisis, innovation by innovation. And what does this approach mean to you? What it does mean is that we long ago accepted that sustainability is not going to happen, sustainability change is not going to happen through the gazelle technologies. It's going to happen by a lot of different approaches coming to bear on the problems that we face. So we are particularly open and broad in the technologies that we look at. Next slide. So as I said, the Rocket Fund is a grant program that provides you with money to do something that is rather difficult to do, and that is to assemble the data that can convince either a prospective customer or an investor that your technology works in the real world. So ideally, you can use the Rocket Fund money to assemble that data and then to rocket forward to the point where you can start producing a product and maybe start earning revenue that will make you financially sustainable. Next slide. So this slideshow gives you an idea of where the Rocket Fund fits in the ecosystem, the role that we particularly play. So first click. So these days in particular, you can start your company typically with your own money or friends and family. There are some prize competitions out there, some that are offered by the Department of Energy that can get you started. Next slide. If you're lucky and the technology actually proves out, then you can jump to stage 3 and bridge funding. That entitles you and qualifies you for money from utility programs, other Department of Energy kind of SBIR type of funding, some money from innovation clusters. It allows you also to join incubators where you may have to give away a small amount of equity, but you get their support. Again, once you actually can develop your technology into what I call a pre-product, then investor capital begins to look at you. And they can provide you money to begin the scale-up process. Next. So, of course, with a product ready to go, then you have customers lining up, and essentially you're on your way. But the real problem is stage 2. It's the so-called valley of death, where you're coming out of the lab or you're coming out of your garage. You've got technology that is proven to on a smaller scale, but it's very hard even now to get the money to fill that gap. That's what the Rocket Fund does. And we also, I want to say that we provide capital at the very earliest stage of that prototype building, the riskiest stage. Next slide. Okay, here is a demonstration of some of our members. You can see that it includes the major California utilities, SCE, Pacific Gas and Electric, SMUD, San Diego Gas and Electric, SoCal Gas, and 2 municipal utilities, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, and SMUD. So they actually provide technical experts that will see your technology through the process. We also are partnered with clusters. I mentioned LACI in particular, but also obviously with the WET cluster, with the Bay Area cluster that's headed up with Cyclotron Road, and with Cleantech San Diego. Now, I wanted to mention that in all of this arrangement, we also have special partnerships with the IN2 Wells Fargo program and with the GC times N program that are in fact funded by Wells Fargo and by Shell, respectively. And I'll say more about how those work a little later. And last but not least, by the way, we have a cluster of a very select group of venture capitalists who like to look at early stage companies. They may not be quite ready to invest in you, but they want to start forming a relationship, a partnership, keep an eye on you. And they actually participate on our technology advisory committee. Next slide. Okay, since 2015, we've hosted 7 funding cycles, we're actually into our 8th cycle. We've awarded over $1 million to companies, to 33 companies. And I want to say that of the 33, 31 are still in business, which is quite a record. Next slide. And the model works. And I'll be able to explain a little better, a little later, I should say, why it does work. We know it works because these are the statistics. So our companies have gone on to raise over $100 million worth of follow-on funding. And by the way, that's a conservative estimate. Companies don't often disclose all their funding, but you can see that the largest portion of it is an investment round, early investment round, either seed or even Series A. Okay, next slide. These are just some of the Rocket Fund companies that have received actually multiple rounds of investment. They span the range from WeaveGrid, which is a software platform, through to really hardcore science companies like SkyCool and Antora Energy. And I do want to point out that 2 of them, Ladera and PowerFlex, were actually acquired within a couple of years of getting a Rocket Fund. Now, it would be naive to say that that was the only reason that they had grown to the point where they were attractive to their industry leaders, but Rocket Funds certainly helped. It came in at the strategic right point to actually de-risk their technology so that these bigger partners would start working with them. Next slide. Now, even in 2021, we took a look at the companies that, a select number of companies to see how they did. And I have to say that over the COVID period of 2 years, of the 33 companies I mentioned and the 31 that are still in business, they told me that they were weathering it rather well. And in 2021, still not a good year for investment, you can see that 5 of them actually closed major investment rounds. Others went on to announce new products. That's a major milestone for early stage companies, and $1 million customer arrangements. Next slide. Okay, so I've already touched a bit on what the Rocket Fund offers, grant programs that are staged between $25,000 and $75,000. I will say that we look for you to stage your ask in $25,000, $50,000, and $75,000 chunks. But if it doesn't work out that way, we're happy to negotiate and emphasize that it's non-directed, it's your strategic goals that count, and it's unencumbered. We don't take any IP. Then it's fast. I've already mentioned that. We're flexible. We try to keep the reporting requirements as streamlined and as easy as possible. We know that you want to spend your time on, in fact, completing your Rocket Fund award, implementing the installation of your prototype. So we'll ask you to come back to us quarterly and just say how you're doing. And those quad reports that we require are really to see how we can help. So it's not just to see whether you're using our money well, or as you said you intended to do, but really to see if there's some way we can bring our extensive network to help you. I've already mentioned that we work closely with our utility experts who understand the market, and they also can provide access to utility matching funds and testing facilities. On occasion, we've been able to triple or quadruple the Rocket Fund award if there's a match with what you want to do and the roadmap priorities that the utilities have laid down. And I've already talked about the channel partnerships with IN2 Wells Fargo and NREL, and I want to just give you an insight into how they work. These programs cannot be accessed publicly. It has to come through channel partner referrals like ourselves. So after the competition closes, we look at our semi-finalists and our finalists. And when the call comes out from these programs, we then take a look at where we think there is the best fit, and we refer you into these programs. And if you win them, if you win an award, what that gives you is a voucher program of several $100,000 to be able to work with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory technical experts. It gives you access to their facilities so that you can really develop your technology. And I have to say that if you get the stamp of approval from NREL, that goes a long way to attracting investors or customers. We also have a relationship with the Electric Power Research Institute, where we have actually piloted and we're going to be rolling out an early deployment program. What that does is, again, we bring forward select companies that EPRI will then look at in much more depth, much more detail, and prepare an offering, if you like, for their utility members. And if the utility member is interested in working with you, then you'll be put in direct contact with them. Next slide. Okay, I'm often asked, what is the readiness level of technology that we look at? So we've actually borrowed from the Department of Energy TRL levels. And as you can see here, TRL 1 to 4 is really developing the system, the device. At the end of TRL 4, you'll have a lab scale prototype or maybe an alpha version of your software platform. Jumping up to TRL 7, you have a complete system and you will have completed your demonstration and be really ready to scale up the product and roll it out. We fund the in-between Valley of Death, TRL 5 to 7. And in particular, we're happy to look at the earliest stage of the Valley of Death, which I've already said is often the riskiest stage for a company. It's the hardest, still the hardest to fund. And that is when you have a lab scale device or technology that you now want to design into what we call the minimum commercial prototype. If you, by the way, have reached TRL 8, you're way beyond what we can do, but we are happy to help you apply for grants that can help you scale up production. Next slide. Okay, so what do we fund? The reason that the relatively small scale grants that we make work so well is because they're smart grants. So we definitely fund the initial prototype and product design. So let's say that you have the technology at TRL 4 and you need to do some work to get that done, we can fund that. We certainly fund the prototype engineering and the testing, and we do fund some installation as well. And potential customers or partners love that because that removes the burden of funding from them. If you go to them and say, look, we're applying for a grant where we'll be able to pay for the installation, we just need you to provide some technical support, and obviously a demonstration site. It makes it much more palatable. Equipment purchase, that's something that's interesting. It's not covered by federal programs like the SBIR program. We pay for that. Software development, certainly not just the software that you have to develop in connection with, let's say, some kind of hard science device, but also software platforms. And I want to underscore that because I'm often asked whether we do fund software companies. We do. If you go to the website, you'll see some of the ones that we have funded in the past. Certification. Certification is important because nobody likes to fund that. Customers expect you to have it done. Investors won't pay for it. We do. And often that makes the difference between you succeeding and sometimes even failing as a company. And consulting services are scaling up. Even if you've done several startups in the past, it's still difficult to understand what your technology is going to look like once it's scaled up. There's a lot of testing and development that has to be done. We help pay for the consulting service from people who've taken technology to product before. Next slide. So this is new. This year, we've divided our call into tracks, and you can read them for yourself. They include integrated grid, decarbonized industries, green buildings, and green materials, hard to decarbonize sectors. We have a new call under environment. This is not something that we've called out before as a specific category. And under that, you'll see water management and precision agriculture. And that is important to those on the call because we're going to take a closer look at those kinds of innovations as a priority this year. And then there's Moonshot. So I want to say that the Moonshot really is for those companies that don't fit easily into the other categories. We've always prided ourselves on being prepared to take a risk on technologies that were really a little bit early, a little bit risky, a little bit leading edge, and we didn't want to lose that. So the Moonshot is not only because you may not fit in the other categories, but to actually fund those out of sight and not popular technologies that really have the potential to make a huge difference in the future. The advantage to you this year of the track system is that you are going to be seen by subject matter experts in your area and investors who have a particular interest in what you do. And also, I want to point out, because I'm asked this question often, is we will be assigning one award to each category, at least one, maybe two. If you have any questions as you start filling out the application form about where you fit, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I'd rather that you applied where you had the best chance of success. I'm available for questions up until midnight, March the 4th, when our applications close. So don't hesitate. Next slide. So this slide gives you the highlights of our process. It's a 3-stage process. The time frame is basically from March the 4th through to the end of June. It does operate like any grant. In other words, after the awards are made, we come back to you and we'll set milestones that you are expected to meet against payments. Now, this is important to really review, and that is, what's the implementation timeline for the design of the prototype and then moving it to the point of installation? It should be 9 to 12 months from the time you get the award, but we've been flexible in the past, particularly with COVID. We know that, for instance, negotiations on a demonstration site might, I wouldn't like to say this, but might go sideways and you have to start over again. We get that. And we can hold on to the money for a certain time period. Sometimes, for instance, companies have had to wait until their suppliers were able to supply the equipment or the machinery that they needed. We can hold on to the award for the time period to cover that. We do welcome repeat applications, but what we don't welcome are companies who put in several applications in the same year, applying their technology to different marketplaces. honestly, by the time you apply a Rocket Fund, we feel that you should have done enough customer discovery so that you know where your beachhead market, the most likely and most successful beachhead market is going to be. So it's a bit of a turnoff if you send in 3 applications for different markets. Next slide. Next slide.
This is the next slide. Did you want to advance again?
It should be stage 2.
Okay.
It's stage 2. There we are. So we ask you to fill out a SemiFinal form. It's fairly straightforward. It's a PDF form that you can fill. I just want to pull out a few things that we look for in the SemiFinal form. It really is a deeper dive into the questions you've already answered on the application form. So a lot of it will be familiar from other applications you've made to grants or to investor presentations. So we sort of feel that it's a fairly straightforward thing to fill out. But I do want to point out a couple of things. And for instance, in manufacturing, we don't expect you to have a detailed process with the price point at the end of it, unit price point that you expect to be able to charge. But we do expect that you've looked at it, that you have some concept of how it's going to roll out, and whether at the end of it, you're going to be able to produce something that customers will want to buy at the price point that you're setting. So it doesn't have to be detailed, but it does have to have a strong concept attached to how you're going to manufacture your eventual product. Third party is a validation. What we look for there are published papers, your own data. It could be data from the gold standard testing labs. It could be customer validation. In other words, a letter that comes with your application that says, look, we've looked at this technology. We think it has application in these areas. All of that is helps strengthen your application tremendously. Competitive assessment, I can't stress enough because a lot of applications might miss this, that we need to see that you really understand what the competitive landscape is like there, for you to be able to then explain to us where your innovation is going to find its own market niche. So we have assembled a very strong technology advisory committee, and there's bound to be at least one person on the TAC that knows about the competition. And it strengthens your application incredibly if you can say, well, we've looked at the competition and this is where we play in the marketplace. Now, the impact we know is very hard to assess at this point. It's hard to quantify. Again, we're just looking for the fact that you've integrated it into your business model. It's a concept right now, but that at estimates, as far as you're concerned, we know that it might take 5 or 10 years to prove out, but we just want to see that you've looked at it. And under impact, it could be such things as energy savings, it could be greenhouse gas mitigation, but we also are looking for impact to the broader community. So this year, we've actually set up a special field in our criteria for addressing diversity. Diversity certainly in company leadership, but also in community benefits, specifically to the underserved community in California. So that is something that you can look at and include in your impact statement. Next slide. Okay, stage 3, the review panel and pitch day. This is still going to be done online, but it gives you a chance to actually pitch in person, if you like, to our review panel. And at that stage, we have a pretty good concept of what your technology can offer. We've seen theoretically what you plan to do. Now is the time for you to really, if you like, sell yourself, the company, and the potential for your technology. So we certainly look for the technology validation, performance data, you being able to understand how that's going to be translated into a market niche, clearly articulated customer and market, total addressable market and specific addressable market. But I will say that often companies will project forward and say, well, this is our TAM is $1 billion market globally. That's fine, but at the stage you're at, it's probably rather unrealistic. It's a guess. What we really look for is the beachhead market, because that will include your customer focus, the early adopters that will actually buy your product once it's rolled out, that will then establish the foundation of your company growth. That is what the Rocket Fund was set up to actually move you towards. And we also want to see a very clearly articulated plan of attack. So, outline of plans for field trials with customers. Again, as I mentioned earlier, those may not have been quite secured, nailed down within the time frame of applying for the Rocket Fund and the process as it unfolds. But if you at the time of getting an award can say, look, we're in deep negotiations, we think that we will probably complete these in the next couple of months, not a problem for us. But we do need to see that a customer or a potential partner, strategic partner, or one of the gold standard lab testing facilities are prepared to work with you. That's fine. I've already mentioned the use of funds and also the manufacturing plan. Pay close attention to how we can help. Keep in mind that it's not only the cash that we can provide, but we can provide introductions to the utilities, maybe for technical support or for access to their test facilities. We can provide connections to potential customers. And certainly, once you're ready to start raising your investment, we're happy to send on your presentation to the investors that, as I said earlier, follow Rocket Fund companies. The one thing I will also mention that is important is that we ask both at the application stage and at this final stage for the total amount of money that you've raised so far. Now, it can be as small as friends and family. It can be early prize money. It can be bigger grants that you've secured through CalSeed and CalTestBed. Those are of particular interest, by the way. We pay very close attention to CalSeed and CalTestBed awarded companies. It can be even investment up to about $3 million. Now, we are happy to leverage these awards. The only thing that with the bigger amounts of money we will actually ask is that you carve out a special role for the Rocket Fund to show that our money has been catalytic to you actually maybe implementing the grant or implementing the investment round. Next slide. So here's the timetable for this coming year. As I said, we close at midnight. In fact, it's 11:59 on the 4th of March. Then you are going to be, once you're notified, you're going to be given a couple of weeks to fill out the due diligence form. And we found that, in fact, that's enough time, given the fact that you are going to have other sources of information that you can essentially cut and paste into the application form. The review meeting happens on May the 28th. We meet for a couple of hours where we go over the scores of the due diligence reports that they have received. And I will tell you that we spend most of the time on the companies that are, how shall we say, in the middle. In other words, the ones that are clearly strong enough for a Rocket Fund consideration are passed through. Those that are not quite ready for a Rocket Fund should probably come back in a year's time. We also don't spend a lot of time with those. We spend a lot of time, though, on the middle sector where the due diligence report is really promising. And we think that there's a lot there, but there may be a couple of fields that weren't actually answered quite properly. We talk over that and see whether, in fact, it's worthwhile including. And I will say that in the past, we set ourselves a goal of maybe looking at 10 to 15 companies. But because the middle companies are so strong and have been so strong over the past couple of years, we end up doubling that amount to number of companies to at least 20 or 22. So don't feel because you fall in the middle that you're falling out, not necessarily. Then you will be asked, as I said, to present in the mornings of May the 31st or June the 1st. The interesting thing about us is that We meet after the second day, and we discuss the companies, go through the scoring again. We have a lot of conversation, and we actually decide on the rewards on that day. Then we go into a negotiation period with the awardees. Sometimes we need to understand a little bit better about what they plan to do with the money. We sign a performance agreement that's based on the milestones that we set together. This is not legally binding. It's simply, shall we say, a way of level setting, if you like, what you intend to do so that we're all on the same page. And then once that's completed, typically at the end of June, then we can actually free up the money, and the Cleantech process happens to be very fast. So you should get it within a couple of weeks after that. Next slide. So I'd encourage you to learn more by going to the website. Certainly encourage you to apply. If you don't feel there's a fit for you this year, then maybe you can refer others. And last slide. And here are the contacts. Top is the application online platform that UNoodle is hosting. Contact me, as I've said, I'm freely available until March the 4th. We would much rather have you put your best foot forward. What is very frustrating for us is when we see that a company has a lot of potential and somehow the application just doesn't hit the mark as what the Rocket Fund is looking for. So don't hesitate to contact me. And I urge you to check out the website. Most of the details that I've gone over are actually, at least the highlights are given on the Rocket Fund website. Easy to find, just go to Cleantech and Google Rocket Fund. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing that, all that great information and also this wonderful opportunity. So I'll leave this up for just a second, and then I'll also copy and paste some of these links into the chat so that people can get those as well. But we do have a few questions, and if anybody else has a question, please use the Q&A feature, the chat, or you can also raise your hand and I can allow you to talk so you can actually ask the question.
And can I jump in and say that, because I have to say this, there is no silly or stupid or inappropriate question. The Rocket Fund fills a very special niche. And as I said just a moment ago, I'd rather that you ask your question that leads to a good application, gives you the best chance of success.
Perfect. So Travis, I'm going to start with your question because it was the same one I was going to ask first. So does the applicant company need to be filed in the state of California?
No, we actually support companies we have over the years that are out of state. So certainly filed elsewhere, but also located elsewhere. We've even supported a company based in Canada. What we do expect that you will be using our money to establish a presence in California. And that can be, it could be the demonstration site, of course, that's the obvious one. It could be using our money to establish a market presence in California.
Perfect. Can they receive a copy of the presentation after?
I'm certainly happy for that.
Okay.
And maybe you can distribute it with a link to the webinar recording.
Yeah, so I will be happy to send that to anybody who wants it. Will Rocket Fund reimburse any money that has been spent on product certification?
We don't work, if I understand the question, we do pay for certification. Okay, in other words, our Rocket Fund grant can be put towards that. We don't work on a reimbursement basis. We give you the money up front, and then we follow up with you quarterly through our reporting system, through the quad reporting system, just to see how the money is being spent.
Okay.
Certification is an important area. I had one company, I just want to amplify that a little bit. I had one company that used our money towards certification. They told me afterwards, they obviously didn't tell me at the time, that they were close to going under, actually, to failing. But they used our money to start the certification process and they're able to finish stage 1 of it. And then it was amazing. They had actually 20 customers line up once they see that they were on the road to getting certification. Made a huge difference. So we're happy to support that.
Perfect. Can an individual apply as long as a company is formed if they win?
Yes. I will say that by the time it comes around to June, where you're going to be presenting to the review panel for the award, we do want to see that there's more than one person on the team, but certainly an individual can apply. Yeah.
Perfect. Is it possible to export and send their application to you for a review before submission?
Yes. Yes, I do look at them. I'm prepared to look at them, sure. But it does help if it does help. Sorry to finish up. It does help if you, in your email to me, you indicate where you're having the most challenge, if you like, in understanding what we want or where you fit.
Okay, perfect. Should they apply to fund the initial prototype if it costs about $75K?
Yes, that's fine. Nope. Yep, we'll look at it for sure.
And then one more I'm seeing come in is, how do you suggest teaming with a company in the process of an SBIR grant, but would not hear back from SBIR by the time your cycle evaluation process completes?
So include that in your application, for sure. That kind of information is really important. What other funding are you seeking? And with the expected timeline for when you might receive it. Absolutely. I just want to make it clear. We are really here to support the ecosystem as a whole. So that means CalSeed awardee companies. It means CalTestBed awardee companies. It means those that have received SBIR awards. In fact, some of our companies have received millions of dollars of federal grant support leading up to the time that they apply for the Rocket Fund. So that's not a deterrent. We're happy to leverage it.
Can a company get help with things like manufacturing and marketing from Rocket Fund, even if the company doesn't receive money?
Yes, on occasion, we've been able to help with that. Yep. Through our partnerships, through our network.
Perfect. So does anybody else have any other questions? You can either chat them in, raise your hand, any other comments, questions, anything. We will be here for you. And then we're also going to hang out as well for a little bit. So if maybe, oh, let's see, Justin, I'm going to allow you to talk. So you're feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Sorry, can you repeat the answer? I lost connection from my own question earlier, right before you answered it.
So repeat your question, Justin, just to be absolutely clear about what you're asking.
Can someone receive help from you guys with manufacturing, getting to market, getting established as a company without receiving money?
Yes. Yes, on
Okay.
occasion, we've done that through our network for sure.
Okay, thank you so
much.
And
especially through our channel relationships. I just want to amplify what I said earlier. The IN2 program, the GC times N program, bridge funding, all of these do tend to look at more established companies. And we have good connections with those. We have good connections with the Electric Power Research Institute that also looks at later stage companies. So no, we're happy to help where we can.
Shall we indicate if we have an outstanding application to the IN2 program?
Yes, absolutely. Love to see that. We'd love to see that you're seeking other sources of money, because that will ensure that the strength of your company, the strength of what you're doing. And we're happy to support them.
Perfect. And then Jose, yes, this webinar has been recorded, so we will be posting this to our YouTube after, and we should also be emailing out this link and the application or the PowerPoint to everybody who was attended or registered. So it will definitely be out there for you, and we hope you apply and watch it after if you need to, or send it to anybody who you think might be interested in applying. Travis, I'm allowing you to talk if you want to ask any questions. You don't have to, no pressure.
Oh no, I'm great. Thank you so much. This has been very helpful and informative. I'm actually have already started my application on the UNoodle platform here.
Oh,
and
good.
am just pulling some citations and getting right into it. So thank you very much.
Oh, that's awesome. Look forward to getting it.
Travis was just in Valley Ventures 6, so I feel I can pick on him a little bit. So Travis.
And I'll be out there for the World Ag Expo in about 2 weeks.
Can't wait to see ya.
Yep.
I do, want to stress that certainly from my perspective, that precision agriculture is really important to us. And we very much want to focus laser-like on that area this year. So just encouraging people to consider us for that.
Hey, David, how are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Oh, hey, thanks. Hey, I had to walk away. I had a call from the government and I had to take it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you know, you don't miss those. So did you go over about the actual steps or process of, you know, starting the application? Is there a link, or are you going to send this possibly to the people who have, you know, joined the call with our email? We registered.
Yeah, so David, I can send you both the application, or the application, I keep saying that, I can send you the PowerPoint with the link to the application.
Oh, okay.
And then the YouTube will be up probably next week sometime after it has a chance to be trimmed a little bit and edited, just from trim the beginning and end a little bit. So
yeah, trim
afterwards, but I can send you that PowerPoint after, for definitely.
Yeah, trim me out, please. But no, that was good. It's been a couple of years since I've been down, 2 or 3 or 4 years since I've been to one of your presentations at Fresno State.
I remember that. I think you came to the CalSeed one in the wonderful conference room at Jerk.
Yeah, I did. I was there, and then you and I went back and forth. But yeah, I'm very far along, and I was the one who posed the question about being reimbursed. Because I'm in the UL process, and I've actually had to spend tens of thousands of dollars already getting certified, and that's why I was asking about reimbursement.
Oh, I can answer that, not a problem. Just include it, say that it's the purpose for the Rocket Fund would be for certification. Whether you've already spent the money or not is irrelevant.
Yeah, and that's a great answer. because it's not for the faint of heart.
No, we know that. That's why we included that in what we pay for.
And I'm not done yet. As a matter of fact, I just sent a huge email back to the certification company today, going back through the 43-page document. It's you know, redlining and everything to write down to typos. I'm like, are you sure this is supposed to be a comma and not a period? Anyway, listen, thank you very much for taking my time here with my hearing my voice. I covered my camera, so.
Good. Look forward to getting your application.
Yeah, I'd look forward to working with you. We want to launch this year, and we're just about ready. So. But there's a lot of moving parts, and COVID has affected everybody. One of the supply chain company I'm working with in Utah, they have a 5-month lead time just for their product alone. And we have multiple products that we combine together, you know, to make our product. And yeah, I mean, well, and you talked about it earlier, your understanding about why things take so long.
Yeah.
Yes,
oh, sure.
Crazy.
I was so grateful that when I went back to the awardees that I didn't find that the worst would have been possible, that they were out of business, you know. In fact, they just worked smart. They just worked smart. Use the time in other ways, the lockdown time in other ways very effectively.
That's what we did at our company too. We literally behind the scenes, we worked with, I'm sure you guys know Blue Dolphin Engineering and
that's local.
Oh yeah. We worked hand in hand. Matter of fact, I was just with them a few weeks ago working on something. So yeah, outstanding. Well, thank you for your time. You can mute me.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. And if you have any questions, you know who to reach out to.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. If there's no more questions, we're going to stay here and hang out for a little bit. If you might have a more specific question you didn't want to ask in the Q&A. So we're going to hang out here for a little bit, but thank you everybody so much for joining us. Thank you again, Stephanie, for all of that great information. And we will be here. If anybody needs anything, feel free to email me at the Wet Center. Let me chat that in. So I just put my email in the chat, so feel free to reach out to me. I can connect you to Stephanie, reach out to Stephanie as well. But anything you need, we are here for you. We're here to help you guys. So let us know if you need anything. And thank you so much for attending, and we hope you apply.